first round.
I'm hoping the NYPD can speak on the crackdown on private partners. And next
Yeah, we're going to get to that when we go to off-topic. Miles? All right, come on. Dean?
In terms of hate crimes, because you started with that, what is the NYPD doing to stop hate crimes, and can you honestly stop them from occurring?
Well, Dean, we can't get into people's minds or hearts, but we can certainly do our best to try to stop them, and we do that by actively investigating them with our hate crimes task force and by working in conjunction with everybody in the community. I think everybody in the city's got a responsibility to help make sure that this doesn't happen.
Yeah, Dean, I want to add to that. There's two ways I think the NYPD fundamentally inhibits hate crime, and the first is by building a stronger relationship with the community so we get information. As Commissioner said, you know, in any instance, any tragedy we've seen, if someone had known something and had gotten it to the police in time, we might have been able to avert those tragedies. Well, I think there's an everyday reality in New York City, whereas the relationship between police and community grows closer, information is flowing that often stops crimes or allows NYPD to take actions that inhibit crime, including hate crime. The second piece is consequences. Let's face it, human beings respond to consequences. If the propagators of hate crimes see that there are consequences for others, if they see that justice is swift, it's another important factor in inhibiting other hate crimes.
Given the uptick, and it looks like the largest jump was in the Jewish community, is there any different strategies or tweaking strategies that you're using going forward that you could share with us?
I think it's what I said about making sure that we work closely with the communities that we're sworn to protect and serve. And anybody, the biggest thing, especially if it's criminal mischief, which is a little bit more difficult to investigate, is if anybody's a witness, anybody's got any video, to come forward. I know we do video, we do extensive video canvases, but if you have anything out there that can help us, I think that would really make the difference. As the mayor said, when we catch people, make sure that there's consequences for that, and we do that by working with the prosecutors also. Yep, in the back row.
Any thoughts on why there is an uptick?
I think you have to take a look at current atmosphere, I guess. You know, it's we had this, I think it was about a year and a half ago, we had an uptick also. And then, because it actually going through, Dermot, let me know if I'm going down the wrong road here. In the beginning of the year, we actually saw a decrease in hate crimes. And then just recently, over the last 2 or 3 months, we saw a rise. Yep, and Carol.
Yeah, the attack on the burial ground, there were like a ton of cameras over there, Foley Square area. Have you been able to zero in on a face or anything?
Dermot, you want to just talk about that for a second?
So the incident in the 5th Precinct at the African burial ground, you're correct, there are a large number of cameras in that area. We have recovered several pieces of video, unfortunately none that have been put out yet, and the reason for that is they are either from a distance or grainy, nothing really. We want to put something out when we do. I hope that hopefully soon we will have something probative that we can put out that really will start the information coming in. There's been a lot of work on that case. As I said, we're in the process now of, we have a timeline. We know when it occurred, we believe. We have extremely grainy video of that occurring, and we're beginning to track that person on video. So hopefully soon we will have something that can elicit tips to come in, but the work has been behind the scenes occurring with that case. Just, if I could, just in the last 2 to 3 weeks, the hate crimes detectives have made an arrest on the Upper West Side of an individual drawing swastikas, charged with numerous incidents. In Brooklyn, in the 7-7 and the 9-0 precincts last week, that was the incident where property damage as well as fires, 2 different precincts. Hate crimes detectives in a short period of time made an arrest in that. Also in Brooklyn in the 8-4 precinct just last week, 2 individuals drawing on private property swastikas and hate messages. So that's three just in the last 2 to 3 weeks, with, as the mayor said and the police commissioner, very swift and certain. And I have every confidence that not only in the 5th precinct, but also we have video that we'll be putting out of 3 incidents that occurred in the 7-9 precinct, all within an hour and a half last week, where an individual was pushed and had his hat knocked off. Then a young girl was pushed to the ground, thankfully not seriously injured. And then the pipe that went through the window. So that video has been put out. But rest assured that these crimes are treated with the utmost importance, and our hate crimes detectives are diligently working to bring all those responsible to justice.
Any more crime questions? Miles?
Sort of worried, I mean, there was a story in the Daily News the other day of this sort of like group of anti-Semitic folks and white nationalists operating in teams, and the guys have registered their license plate, some sort of anti-Semitic. Are you worried about that happening, about a rise in hate groups in New York?
Yeah, let me get Chief Galati from our Intel Bureau to talk about that. Tom?
Yes, so, you know, I won't comment about that particular case, but we have a dedicated squad that just looks after all these type of hate groups, whether it's white supremacy, anti-Semite, you know, neo-Nazi type of activity. We work very closely not only with the FBI here in New York, but we also work very closely with our partners in states that have a larger population of these type of hate groups. So we have a very robust program of tracking these individuals.
And are you seeing a lot more now?
I don't want to say that we're seeing a lot more. I think that we've been investigating a lot of these groups for the past several years. I think that when these high-profile cases come up, similar to Pittsburgh, it kind of rises a little bit more. But I think that here in New York City, along with our federal partners, you know, we know who we need to watch, and we are watching them.
And sorry, just to follow up on that, how much did that help in your investigation of Proud Boys and Antifa, the work that you guys do in that intelligence space?
I think I'll give that to Dermot to talk about. There was really good investigative work. I think a lot of good video helped us with that as well. But it wasn't our first time dealing with this particular group. There was an incident out in NYU a while ago, so that assisted us in knowing some of the people.
Kimberly?
The incident in the 7-9 that you were just talking about there, is that the pipe bomb through the window? Is that being now investigated as a hate crime?
It is being investigated as a potential hate crime. It's not a pipe bomb, it's a pipe. But in that incident, we have, within roughly a 45-minute, 60-minute period, we have a group of kids, at least 7 that are seen. They appear to be, and the investigation will bear out the actual ages, but they appear to me to be young, and by young I mean somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 14 years of age, walking on the sidewalk. We have them within a short period of time, few blocks, within 45 minutes that we know of, committing 3 offenses. Again, running up behind an individual 14-year-old boy and knocking his hat off and pushing him. Pushing a 10-year-old girl to the ground. And then the last one, I think I have it in the correct order, throwing the pipe through the window. So that's the image that we put out. We're continuing to work that case. We ask for anyone to call Crime Stoppers, young kids, but we certainly don't want this to escalate into anything or to see anyone injured. So here is the incident here on my left that you see. Anyone that has any knowledge whatsoever of these kids, again, my feeling is that they will be residing somewhere near this, to please call Crime Stoppers.
So you're saying that the incidents with the kids, we're looking at that as a hate crime as well, or just kids acting out, being bad?
No, that's being investigated as a potential hate crime. Again, when you look at the totality of what we have here, there is a nexus to the Jewish faith in all 3. In the first one, you have somebody that commonly dressed that would be recognized as a Jewish male walking down the street. Same in the middle one, same in the last one, in the location where the pipe was thrown through the window.
Yep, right here.
For the pipe that was through the window, the boy whose hat, lost his hat, was he a Jewish boy? Do you know?
Yes, he was.
Investigating an incident on Avenue J with a similar kind of, a similar attack where a guy was punched in the face, a guy was wearing a shirt that said stage crew.
Yep, so within the confines of the 70th precinct, there's an incident. I've watched that video. I don't think we have that video to show. So you see an individual walking I'll say towards me, if you will. You have an individual coming from my back, walking towards that person. It looks like both individuals possibly, at least one definitely, are on their phone with their heads down, not paying attention to their walking, and they bump into each other. The one individual with the stage crew on the back of his shirt immediately starts swinging wildly at the other individual. The individual that is not the stage crew shirt was of the Jewish faith. Right now, that's leaning towards that may not be a hate crime. That's based on what we see on the video, as well as statements of the victim in that case, where he believes it's nothing more than a bump, but that will have to be ironed out. That's all preliminary.
Ashley?
Can someone talk about the death in custody in 6:30 and whether officers after that gentleman indicate that he could not take or attempt to surrender?
Which case is that, Ashley?
It's a death in custody in 6:03. The family was having what seems like an argument in the morning, and the gentleman was carried out in handcuffs, and then he's said to come out of consciousness.
All right, Chief Monahan will speak about that.
Yeah, that was an incident where our officers responded over there, and EMS had made a decision that they wanted to wait for a paramedic to show up prior to removal. At a point, he stopped. He was having difficulty breathing. He was carried out to the ambulance, and then from the ambulance, taken to the hospital. That's where he died. So the investigation in that is still continuing.
Was EMS there right away, or did the officers arrive and he had really difficulty?
EMS was there right away.
Anything else crime-related, Rich?
Just to go back to your statement about the perp in the Pittsburgh case, you said he's not simply a nut. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so this is a number of conversations I had after, we had the pipe bombs going through the mail, then we had this terrible incident in Pittsburgh, and a few people have said to me, there's a lot of nutty people in this world, and I just had to correct them and say, this guy's not a nut. He's an anti-Semite. There's a difference. And he went into a synagogue and shot 11 people. That's not a nut. That's a guy who hates Jewish people. And he's got a history of it. Yep. Tom?
Just overall, NYPD question.
I'm going to wait. Yep. Anybody? So my real question is, does anybody have more questions for Chief Pollack? Yep.
Provide any more details about the apparent suicide of Dorothy Bruns? Do you know?
All right, hold on. We'll get to that. All right, Chief Pollack wants some more questions. She worked very hard last night. All right, off topic. Good. Gotcha, hold on, in the back, right now.
Can you provide me more details about the apparent suicide of Dorothy Bruns? Do you know what kind of pills were found, or what's the suicide note?
Dermot, you have an update on that?
Yeah, just what I will say here is our officers responded, as well as EMS and the ME, to that case. There was a suicide note recovered at the scene, as well as evidence of prescription pills. And beyond that, I'll defer to the ME to conclude the investigation. At this point, it's being treated as an apparent suicide.
Tom?
Overall, NYPD question. There was a report last week about the coin that's being used by the gang squad with the character from The Punisher, who is a vigilante that murders people. Do you think the CO made the right decision to approve that coin?
All right, so the Punisher is a fictional character, and I'm going to let Chief Monahan speak about that.
Yeah, listen. Yes, there are challenge coins all over. It started with the military with challenge coins. Every unit has it. It's a morale thing. It's something that creates camaraderie between the officers. It's not just the PD military. Every business has it. They use a cartoon character. They put out a cartoon character that you could go into any store right now and probably buy a shirt with that cartoon character on it. We leave these decisions up to the COs. Let them make a determination whether it's appropriate or not.
Well, with all deference, it's a cartoon character that murders people.
Yeah, well, so Tom, there's a fine line here, and these are the members of the gang squad who are one of the groups primarily responsible for pushing homicides and shootings down. They're not out there murdering people. So, it's something that we need to constantly talk to the COs about it, make sure that it's appropriate. But we also, Terry and I are in complete agreement that we also have to leave some decisions. We have to push them down to lower levels. So we don't want to micromanage. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can get some updates update on the crackdown on private carters, next steps on that?
Now's the time for that question.
One follow-up for the mayor on that, should I say it now or later?
Why don't you do this first, and then we'll go right to you.
All right, obviously, we did the one-week crackdown, and we had no problem finding violations. Total, we gave out 1,070 summonses. We inspected 142 carton trucks. We put 132 of those trucks out of service, and we towed away 17 different trucks. So we're continuing to work with the BIC, the Business Integrity Commission, and just because the initiative is over doesn't mean the enforcement's over. Our cops around the city are going to be looking for violations, and we'll be stopping them. We will be inspecting trucks as we go forward. Hopefully that we sent the message out to these companies that we will be out there and we will be conducting enforcements, and we won't tolerate any of their actions.
My question for the mayor was that, no problem. My question for the mayor was that, the city holds hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts with some of these companies. I'm wondering if the city is, and NYPD are tracking which companies it's giving these tickets out to, and whether there could be more severe penalties like severing some of these contracts.
Yes and yes.
Miles?
The Business Integrity Commission has 11 investigators, and they've been around for 16 years, and this is sort of the biggest enforcement effort, and we've seen 43 deaths. Is it a little too late? Why is BIC still not empowered to do more? It's the agency that's directly responsible for this industry.
Well, BIC needs more power, and this is one of the things we talked about. I think we're going to get to resolution on that very soon with the city council, and we're going to keep adding the resources needed. I think this is an issue that has grown. I said this a week or two ago. Has grown in everyone's understanding really intensely in recent months, and we're going to respond accordingly. So. I understand to some extent there is a almost constitutional desire on the part of the media to assign blame. Right now, I want to fix the problem. So, sure, but I'm saying, and again, I always try and remind you guys of this central concept. When did we all understand there was a problem? From my point of view, hearing the public discourse constantly, talking to you guys, town hall meetings, radio call-ins, listening to advocates, listening to elected officials, this issue, I certainly did not hear as one of such profound importance even just a couple of years ago. I'm very glad it's been surfaced. I think it needed to be surfaced. It's now going to be treated with extreme focus because we need to go after all of these companies that are causing any kind of health and safety problems. There have to be real severe consequences. I got no problem if a company is harming the people in New York City, doing everything we can to put them out of business. So, we need to strengthen the laws around this, the penalties, the ability of BIC to enforce. Again, I think that's coming very soon in the council. If there's more personnel needed, we're ready to do that. But there's going to be very serious consequences for the companies that have done this.
Sanitation salvage was suspended, but eventually it was reinstated.
Well, that's not over yet.
No, second row.
Yeah, the question about e-bikes. So with this crackdown, there was this idea that the businesses would be fined, right, instead of delivery workers who are riding e-bikes. But I've heard cases where the workers are still getting the ticket and the cops aren't making any effort to actually find the businesses instead. And in some cases, Oath is actually dismissing the tickets because they were given to the wrong person. I'm wondering kind of how you all are addressing that in terms of training officers on the policy and how to enforce it, and kind of what you make of this pattern.
All right, yeah, Chief Chan will talk about our enforcement efforts. Tom?
We've met with some of the advocates on the e-bikes and things of that nature. Ultimately, we've trained our officers. We have an opportunity also to issue summonses to the private business themselves. We do have entrepreneurs out there. Now we have e-bike delivery person that may not necessarily work for a specific restaurant, but they work for a group, and they respond to the restaurant, pick up the food, and make the delivery. Therefore, we cannot issue a summons to a specific business itself because they may be covering 10 different restaurants at any given time. Ultimately, our officers are trained, and they are issuing summonses, and again, the Oath Court will make their determinations out there. The people do have an opportunity to get those bicycles or e-bikes back, but ultimately, the pedal assist bikes are legal out there on the street. we certainly encourage people to utilize them. And again, these bikes, e-bikes that have throttles, those are illegal, and that's the responsibility of the people, and we certainly encourage them to transition over to the pedal assist bikes, which are legal and certainly operated safely.
Just to follow up, how frequently are patrol officers trained on this?
Because there were cases where it was clear that the delivery workers were employed by a restaurant. They were wearing a vest that had the name and essentially the address of the restaurant on it, and they made no effort to kind of track down the business and deliver the client.
Let me just jump in. I'm not familiar with the details, but I want to be crystal clear. We announced this. It couldn't have been clearer. And I'm going to say to my very valued colleagues, if we need to retrain folks at the precinct level, we should. It's abundantly clear. If someone works for a specific restaurant and is making those deliveries, the restaurant should be penalized. Now, Chief's point is very important. Some people don't just work for one restaurant, work for an intermediary company, if you will, in which case we should go after that company. But if there's any gray about the fact that we're not trying to go after the little guy, we're trying to go after the employer, we'll do a better job of getting that message across.
Two more here?
Dean?
When it comes to the apparent suicide of Dorothy Bruns, did the note suggest that the suicide was because of this horrible accident? And your reaction to this, Mayor, because I know you were very upset about this case.
Yeah, Dean, I'm not going to speak to the contents of the note.
Look, I want to say, anytime someone takes their own life, it's profoundly sad, and obviously, all we have focused on in terms of mental health is getting people the help they need and getting people come forward with their problems so that we can avert tragedies like this. That's the reality across the board. This is just an extremely painful case from moment one, and I wish none of this had come to pass. But what's abundantly clear at the same time is we have to change our laws so that we don't have any more tragedies like the one she was originally involved in with those who lost their lives.
Last one, police items.
Rich?
So the private karting industry used to have a reputation of being involved with the mob. Is that, do you know that that's true in the past, and is it still true now? Does anybody have any sense?
Dealt with originally. Yeah, listen, that was something that PIC was originally established for, to work with us, with our OSID unit, to try and get the mob out of it. And as we look at it now, we don't see the mob connections out there were in the past. A lot of that had been removed.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Reset pretty quickly here, folks. If you're staying, now's the time. If you're going, let's go ahead.
We're resetting.
You're staying.